put together in a way that flowed tantalizingly as she swayed to the rhythm of the music. Her black décolleté gown clung to her like a wet bathing suit. At the bar, Johnny Liddell hung a cigarette between his lips, let it dangle there unlighted. He could hear the heavy breath of the bartender as it whistled through his teeth. The rumble of conversation that had filled the room a few minutes before had died down to a whisper. Glasses stopped jingling as she did things to a torching number. Suddenly the song was over. The house lights came up. There was a moment of silence, as though the audience was catching its collective breath. Then a roar of applause exploded. Johnny Liddell swung around to the bar, discovered the unlighted cigarette between his lips, dropped it to the floor. The glass in front of him was empty. He signaled to the bartender for a refill. "Quite a number," Liddell grinned. "That baby's all woman." The bartender wiped his forehead with his sleeve. "I've watched her twice a night, 7 nights a week, and she still does it to me." He reached to the back bar, grabbed a bottle, tilted it over the jigger. He replaced the bottle on the back bar, dumped a couple of pieces of ice into the glass, washed them down with soda. Liddell dropped a bill on the bar. "Full house you got. She draw them like this every night?" The bartender pursed his lips, his eyes hopscotched from table to table. "Every night. And all spenders, not a stiff in the place. All big uptown society people." He snagged a bill, headed for the cash register. On the floor, the redhead was still taking bows. Liddell found a fresh cigarette and lit it. He took a deep drag, blew it through his nostrils in twin streams. He swung around on his bar stool, squinted through the smoke, studied the faces around the dance floor. Some he knew, some he recognized from the Sunday supplements. The bartender was right when he tagged it a top-drawer crowd. The audience finally let the redhead go. She turned, headed for the backstage entrance. The walk was a production. The house lights went down. A yellow spot probed through the semi-darkness, picked up the MC as he pranced out onto the floor. He was tall and thin, had unbelievably broad shoulders, and walked with a peculiar mincing step. Even from where Liddell sat, his teeth looked too white and too even to be real. He fluttered through a couple of off-color jokes that brought a faint ripple of laughter, and sang 2 nasal choruses of a number never destined to become popular as a result of his rendition. The door to backstage opened, and a man in a tuxedo that fitted snugly across the hips, showed signs of ample and expert padding at the shoulders, circled the floor, threaded his way through the tables. He walked down to the bar where Liddell sat, stopped at his elbow. "You're Mr. Liddell." The voice showed the faintest trace of an accent. "I'm Liddell." He dropped the cigarette to the floor, got down from the stool. "Will you follow me?" The man in the tuxedo led the way back, through the tables to the backstage door. The glitter and tinsel of the dining room had no counterpart backstage. There was a long, dingy corridor lined with doors, smelled exotically of 1 part perspiration, compounded with 3 parts perfume. They stopped in front of a door decorated with a peeling gilt star. The man in a tuxedo knocked. "It's Charles, Mona." "Come in, I'm decent." The redhead sat on a straight-backed chair in front of a cluttered dressing table. Half a dozen snapshots and telegrams were stuck in the molding of a fly-specked mirror over the table. Her thick red hair was hanging down over her shoulders, and she had changed the close-fitting dress for a black silk dressing gown. Her face had been wiped clean of makeup, giving it a fresh and youthful look. Her mouth was moist and soft-looking. "Thanks, Charles." She dismissed the man in the tuxedo with a smile, waited until he had closed the door behind him. "I'm glad you could come, Liddell. I need your help." She studied him frankly, seemed satisfied with what he saw. She reached over to the dressing table, picked up a long silver box, shook out a cigarette. She offered one to the private detective.